Hello guys, David Vos here. Well, long time no see. Didn't do a video yesterday or the day before. And I know maybe some of you were getting a little worried. Oh, where'd he go? They take him down again? No, they didn't. I had a couple of things come up. Um, it takes quite a bit of work. There's a long process putting these videos out. And so sometimes things come up and I'm not able to do a video. But I will tell you there's some very good news. We've been talking about what we're going to do because just the other day I was telling you, man, things are going to get bad. Maybe by October something could happen. And when this happens, when things go down, it'll just be a matter of days or weeks. They could shut down travel. I'm not saying that's going to happen. We don't know what's about to happen, but whatever this next thing they're going to throw at us will be, it won't be nice, and it will probably affect other things. So I've been saying we've got to have a place to park that we can legally park. We need water and we need different things. So I've been looking. Well, guess what? Everything for the last 3 years has just gone up so high that I used to look on eBay or Marketplace on Facebook, and I used to see properties that you could get maybe $1,000 an acre. Yeah, there were lots of these properties out in the middle of the desert somewhere where I guess nobody would want them. There are no trees and just sand and no water. You can get property pretty cheap there, and you can still get property there fairly cheap. But the problem is just what are you going to do with sand, with no water, no trees, or anything? And I really didn't want to just buy an acre of land out in the middle of some desert where it was miles to anywhere and not even a well or a creek or anything nearby. I couldn't see myself doing that. I was kind of holding out. I've been looking for something better and praying about it. And I will tell you that I'm going to talk about a lot of different things in this video today. I want to tell you about airplanes. I want to tell you about the curvature of the earth. Yes, that's going to be something we'll talk about today. I want to talk about eBay and buying land and all these different things and the things that have been happening to me. I wanted to, since I've been here in Alabama, I've just enjoyed it thoroughly. I love Alabama and I don't want to leave. However, things are about to get real. So I am trying and praying and seeking what the Lord wants me to do and where I'm going to be able to go and ride this out, as all of you probably are. Well, that's another thing I want to talk to you. I think maybe the biggest thing that we want to talk about today is prayer and how you are supposed to pray. It's not like there's a rule, but what is prayer so that we can understand it, so that we can do it more efficiently. I want to share with you some things about prayer. I want to show you, friends, that this is the most amazing thing you'll ever know. There's books out there about prayer. We've got the positive thinking books and the visualization books, and we've got these all kinds of different stories and things. And some of you have read these books and things, and they've been helpful. But it's an art to understand it fully. You can read a book by Norman Vincent Peale about the power of positive thinking, and it's just so exhilarating to see this information. If you've never heard of it before, especially. And you start putting that together with the scriptures and what Jesus was talking about, and you start realizing this is what it's all about. We, by the power of our word and our thoughts, by bringing every thought into subjection to Christ and by speaking the right words in the name of Christ. See, there are some confusions. A lot of people read these books and they come off. I think there was a book a few years ago, it was by at Walmart, called The Secret. And everybody was talking about it, but it had some facts or some missing pieces so that people can't quite get to how to do this. They can't quite understand. They try it. They're not sure it's working. They give up. I want to give you some details on that today. So I was praying, and I do this every day, and I have literally miracles that happen practically on a daily basis. I would say on a daily basis, but some of the things that happen might just be where I found my wallet or wishing that, hoping my daughter is safe and these kinds of things. Those are miracles, because if you knew the situations that I've been through, you would understand. But most of you get that. But I want to share with you today some methods and some reflections on my prayers and how it's worked for me and how I've learned, so that I hope we can get a better understanding of this for all of us here. For everyone who watches my videos, I encourage you to watch this video to the end. Now we're going to start off with a few points that I just wanted to share, because I noticed a couple of odd things that I wanted to share with you before we get to the prayer stuff. And I want to share the good news about this property that I just purchased, which literally was a miracle. Because as I was saying, I've been looking on eBay and Marketplace, and I have not in the last 3 years been able to find anything, zilch, that would be affordable like it used to be, where you could just, put $100 down and $100 a month, on a 5-acre piece of property in a nice little area. I mean, that's something you could probably almost never find at any point in the last maybe 10 years. But there were, I would see off and on a little 5-acre piece of property that, you could get for $300 or $400 down and maybe $300 a month or something like that. That's what I did with that last property that I had in Oklahoma. It was a 20-acre piece, which I purchased for, I think, nothing down. I don't remember, maybe $300 my first month's payment or something. And then after that, it was $300 a month, and I lived there for a while. Well, it got difficult to live there because of the snakes and the bugs, as you guys know. But since I've left there, I have not found those kinds of deals. Well, I was just, and I've been looking, and I've been praying about it, but not fretting or worrying about it, just trusting that the Lord would send it at the appointed time, because He asks us to seek and we'll find, ask and we'll receive. But He also says to be patient, to learn patience, endurance, and trust and faith. And that's what all this means, that we have to just put it on the Lord, and then, and I'll explain to you later here why and the circumstances of what that means, to just put it on the Lord and not think about it. So I did this, and I think maybe 3 or 4 days ago, I noticed this. I went onto eBay. I had just about given up eBay because there was just nothing there that it would even be, they had maybe some little properties in Oklahoma or somewhere along, maybe in Texas, by an old lake out in the middle of nowhere, and all you got was 1/10 of an acre or something. And you're jammed up in a neighborhood with other people. Some of them had less restrictions, but you were with a bunch of people. There were HOA fees. You had to get a permit if you wanted to do anything. It was just very difficult. The only place you could find something where you're not under any obligation to get permits or anything, you could just do what you want or camp on it, is usually places either in the middle of the desert in Nevada, where it can be very cold in the winter. There are very few trees. Wind blowing in the winter, it's difficult. And again, no water, no creeks it was difficult to find anything there. There's West Texas has some areas out in the middle of, like, Van Horn or whatever. If you've ever gone down there, you wouldn't really want to just be lost in the middle of a desert down there. You'll find some places around Holbrook where it's about 7,000 feet elevation, colder than a bug's ear in the middle of the winter, wind blowing at 40, 50, 60 miles an hour. The wind chill factors are really, really bad, and very few trees. So and no water. So this is the kind of thing that you would find. Well, I remember many years ago driving through New Mexico, and I hadn't lived there at that time. This was years before I even moved to New Mexico. And I remember driving through this little town by Grants, New Mexico, and I went south because it was night and we needed to find a place to pull off and camp. So we went south from Grants, and it was getting dark and we couldn't, really even see. But just as it started getting dark, I noticed how beautiful, with all these big trees and these canyons and cliffs and, colonnades and boulders and beautiful grass. It wasn't like just sand. There was some grass, and there was these big, huge, like, I call them ponderosas because I don't know what each of these variety of trees might be. But they were big, huge, beautiful trees. the kind that I like. These, not just like these little juniper shrub brush, but these big, huge pines with big branches, and they were just beautiful. And I just fell in love with it. And I said right then and there, this is where I want to live. Period. I've never found a place better. I like it here. I'm going to investigate this. And this was when my daughter was really, really, I think she was just a baby. Well, we woke up in the morning and looked around. It was just beautiful. I was just so amazed at this place. But we kept driving thinking, well, we'll keep going and we'll find something somewhere. Because I was just wandering, trying to find a home at that point. I mean, I was literally lost. And we were just driving through the desert in my car. So we ended up going and going, and somehow or another we kind of passed where we were and got like, uh-oh, it's starting to get more deserty here. And I didn't like it. I want to think, well, I need to go back, but I couldn't find a place to buy. There wasn't anything available. So I didn't know what to do, and I just kept driving. I ended up in a little town called Tucumcari, New Mexico, which, I lived in that town or that area for about 18 years. I ended up also living in Clovis and Portales. I bought several homes in that area and raised my daughter there. But I'd always regretted not, holding out and looking for a place over there. Well, years went by and I ended up going to Texas and then on to, Oklahoma, as you guys know. Now here I am in Alabama. So I'm praying and seeking a place to go where I've got shelter and I've got beauty and I've got a place where I'm free and I can do what I want. And all of a sudden pops up this little 5-acre piece. And I thought, yeah, right, let's, whatever, let's look at it. And it said they only wanted 10,000 or like something like 9,000 for the whole thing, which is a very reasonable price. But it would be a reasonable price for a piece of sand out in the middle of the desert. Because that's about, that's as low as you go. But this particular place had good access. It has huge, beautiful pines. It's amazing and beautiful. There's cliffs and bluffs all around and on the property. I'm within minutes, like a few miles from El Malpais. I don't know how they pronounce it, El Malpais or El Malpai or whatever, but it's a national monument, which that's what they call it, but it's really like a state park. There's big arches, there's red rocks and brown and tan rocks and beautiful plateaus and canyons and archways. It's no really different than pictures you've seen of maybe Sedona or the Grand Canyon or places in Utah with, the Zion's National Park or these kinds of places. Arches National Park in New Mexico, or I should say Utah. It's the one of these areas that few people really ever heard of. Lots of people have heard of the national parks in Utah. Lots of people have heard of Grand Canyon, Sedona, and all these places. But the same country, the same look, the same beauty, maybe even more beautiful, is this area around El Malpais. And I am going to be right in between this El Malpais and another place called a chain of craters area or whatever it's called. I think it's a recreation area or something, which is just awesome. It's these huge volcanoes and volcanic rock and trees sticking up out of it, and it's brush and yucca, beautiful white flowers and cacti with red flowers, and these huge mountains all around. And we're talking mountains that are real. We're in the Rocky Mountains. It's just gorgeous. The elevation is about 7,000 feet. So it's cold in the winter, but you might have 60-degree weather in the middle of the winter. Next day it could snow 3 feet. But what I like about it is that it's not as windy there because there's lots of mountains. So, yeah, you'll get a little snow, sometimes just a skip of snow, sometimes a foot or two. It melts off right away. It's not that bad. But it is so beautiful, it would make tears come to your eyes. I'm just so grateful that I ended up finding this property. And here's the deal. It said, we'll take financing. We're going to sell this at a discount. Like, these people were just like, we got these properties, we got to get out of this business, we're done with this, right? We're just giving this stuff away. And I'm like, what? So, I heard what they were saying. I thought, nah, no way. So it said $175 a month, and you put down like $500 or something. It was what it ended up being because they wanted 250 closing and all this. So I wrote her a little note and said, listen, would you take nothing down, or, the first month's payment in 30 days, and I'll give you the closing costs, which is, she wanted $250. And would you take, instead of $175 a month at 4 or 5 years, or I don't remember how many years that was, would you take $100 a month? And she wrote back and said, sure. I couldn't believe it. So I ended up saying, she said, okay, go ahead and just push on the button and I'll give it to you. Well, I pushed on it, and then afterwards I go, oh my goodness, she had another one. It was even better. And it had bigger trees and canyons and things. And I was like, oh, I made a mistake. So I wrote her back and said, could I have the other one, please? Instead of that one. Well, I'd already pushed the button. This had to be right straight from the Lord, this whole thing, the way it went. Because she said, that wouldn't be a problem. And she says, go ahead. Somebody's already outbid you on the other one anyway. So I'll just let that go. And you go click on the other one and I'll give it to you for $100 a month. Same thing. Well, the other one was much better. So I clicked on it, and somebody had already bid up to $1,000. So then you kept clicking, and it would just kept saying, you've been outbid, you've been outbid. I had to bid that thing up over $1,000, which I didn't have. But she had told me, just click on it and I'll give it to you for what we agreed. So I clicked on it. And after she got hold of that and realized what had happened, I think she'd probably regretted it, because somebody was willing to give her thousands for that property. That was just the down payment. You weren't required to give more than $49 down payment or something, whatever. You just bid for the down payment. And then it was going to be, payments of $175 for some odd years. But she'd already given her word that she'd give it to me for nothing down, but $100 a month. And I'll be darned if she didn't do it, friends. That was a miracle, because I never gave up. From the moment I saw that property, I literally said, that's my property. I knew it. The Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, that's the property for you. That's what you're going to get. Friends, I'll be showing you pictures when I get out there. It is the most beautiful place you've ever seen. I digress. I want to get into some stuff. But I actually do have footage of the property, which I'll show you, just a clip or two, which is all I have. And I haven't seen it personally myself, but I did see this clip because they had filmed around the property in the area, and a couple of shots of the actual property, which I'll show you here, right here. Isn't this beautiful? Look at this. Look at these big trees. So I don't think that's actually on the property there, or the other picture, but I do have some kind of bluffs and cliffs on the property. That may be a shot of looking into the property. There's a kind of a bump there, a hill, and in the background there's mountains, and it's just fabulous. There's the road going out to the property. The property, I think, is over on the right, but you can see there's some big old trees. This is I think that is the actual property. That's at the beginning of right at the forefront. And so, yeah, that's what it looks like. It is a little dry and stuff, but I like that because there's no ticks, no mosquitoes, and there are rattlesnakes and so forth. But I never had a problem with any kind of snakes or anything like that out in New Mexico. I love it there. Yeah, I'm going to have to find... I don't have a well or a creek on the property, but you know what? There's actually a pond within walking distance from the property. Now, take a look at this. This is another reason why I'm so psyched and so happy, because, you see, I've been praying about this for a long time. My life's passion, I don't think I should say it's my life's passion. It's one of my passions in life. Aside from learning all that I can about the Lord and making sure my daughter is safe and all the people I love. And then there's lots of things. I love my dogs. I love flowers. I love so many things. But one thing is right up there at the top of my list. It's exploration of the ancient ruins and the ancient peoples. And boy, howdy, is there ruins, ancient temples, and I mean literally huge ancient temples that you're not being told about. You see little pictures like this, but we just like, oh, those are just some rocks stacked on each other. It's nothing to see here. Move on down the road. But this is real. There are some some huge mega temples in this area that we're not getting the whole perspective on, and petroglyphs, and there are Hebrew writings all over the rocks, and I'll show you the petroglyphs here. It is just amazing. You find these petroglyphs just everywhere, all up and down, all the canyons and on the rocks and out in the valleys on the rocks. And it is just the most amazing mysteries. If you're into mysteries, if you're into beauty, if you're into hiking, easy trails, dry climate, taking the dogs out and just looking at the flowers and the big rocks and the huge trees and the plateaus and canyons and all the mysterious ruins, oh, howdy, have we found paradise. And it's gonna make for some great footage. We'll take pictures and photos, and we'll be out walking just about every day. Oh, it's gonna be wonderful. I'm just so happy, guys. Well, anyway, I'll just show you a couple of pictures as we're talking here, but it's just beautiful. Because as you know, I lived in this area, not far from here. Well, it was a couple 100 miles from here, where I lived. But I could still travel over there, and I did from time to time, and I explored some of these things. But now we're going to be right in the thick of it, and we're going to have full-time on, I don't know if I'm going to be able to even get there right away because, well, there's some complications. I've already made a lease. Well, my daughter signed the lease for me here. And so, if I leave now, I'm going to lose but I don't care about that. But I'm not quite sure whether I'm taking off right now or soon or whatever. I do want to get there before winter and at least look at the place and get, it's just kind of up in the air exactly what I'm about to do right now. Anyway, I'm just so tickled I can't even hardly, think straight. But I do want to share with you, because I was thinking about how amazing it is that I have learned and I've seen and I've watched and experienced, in no uncertain terms, great miracles, answers to prayer every day. And I'll admit that at first I didn't really know what I was doing. Somebody the other day called me and we were talking about whether, miracles and prayer and stuff. And I had talked about some of the things I'd seen, and I'd seen angels, and this amazing person that was talking to me said to me, well, have you ever seen Jesus? And I said to him, well, I don't know, because I have seen Mother Mary and I have seen some angels, but I do not know. There was one particular occasion in which I did see a being in pure white that I felt was Jesus, but I wasn't sure because they didn't really tell me. He didn't really say, look, I'm Jesus. And I was so frightened out of my mind, I really didn't know. So I wasn't sure. And so that's the kind of thing I want to share with you is just, how does a person find himself standing and talking to an angel? Just how does that go down, and what kind of faith do you got to have, and how does that work? But I'll admit to you, at the beginning, I didn't really understand what was happening. And he was like, well, how do you know it's Jesus? What if it's the devil? Well, I want to share with you some explanations of what I've learned that will help us so that we can understand that there's absolutely no fear of that. And I'll explain why. Because, you see, there's a lot of misunderstandings about how these things happen and what faith is. And we've done videos on this before, but I think I have in mind a little bit better way that I can share with you this information, and we can probably explain it better than we ever have, because I've got some other explanations that I want to give you to help you, because I'm learning all the time too. I've seen these miracles happen for years now. And all the time I kept seeing this happen, I kept growing in faith. And it doesn't matter how many times it happens, as long as we're in the flesh. For instance, you can, I don't know if you've ever noticed it, but you get high on some herbs, say. And some of you may never experience this. You might not know what I'm talking about. Others may have experienced this. But you can get so high that you literally realize that time doesn't matter, that there is no more time. In higher consciousness, there might not even be a sense of time. Things are different in higher consciousness. So sometimes even when you're in that state and you're amazed and you see the Lord himself and Mother Mary and all the angels in the choir singing, you come back, and after a few hours it begins to fade a little bit because now you're in this snake pit again. And all of a sudden there's some snake hissing at you over there, and here comes a wild boar, and oh my goodness, you know, there's all these terrible things. The government's coming after you, and it's cold outside, and you're hungry, and all these terrible things begin to surround you. And it doesn't take long for your mind to begin to kind of forget what you already know within yourself. So it takes time to learn to stay in that condition. And we have to have the right herbs and the right food and the right environment. So we'll talk about that here in just a minute. But before I do, I want to share with you a peculiar little oddity that I found on the internet. Take a look at this. I saw this. It says, they say a Boeing 747 carries 63,500 gallons of fuel. Where do they put it? This is a 60,000 gallon water tank for reference. Holy moly woly. That is one big old bucket of water. Where would they put that on the airplane? So at first I thought, this is impossible. This is crazy. I didn't even know where the gas tank was on the plane, so I looked it up. Well, it turns out it is true that there are 60,000 gallons of fuel on a 747 or thereabouts. And I'll show you that here. And take a look at this little article that I want to read to you here. It says, let's start with a look at the most famous of jets, the Boeing 747. This Boeing website states that this model with a gas tank capacity of 63,500 gallons may burn 5 gallons of jet fuel per mile of flight. A 4,000-mile flight then requires 20,000 gallons of fuel. Divided among roughly 400 passengers, that's 50 gallons of fuel to move each person aboard from, say, Chicago to London. A Honda Civic gets 30 miles per gallon, would need 133 gallons of fuel to make a trip of the same distance, shared between two passengers, which may be a generous split. The average car carries 1.6 people in America. That would be 66.5 gallons per traveler. And an RV might move just 7 miles on a gallon of gasoline. Split between the two people on board, that would be about 285 gallons of fuel each on a 4,000-mile tour. So far, air travel is looking to be more efficient. I don't know. This is really pretty... All I wanted to show is that 63,500 gallons, that tank on that plane must be pretty darn big. Well, let's make sure that we're getting accurate information here. So here is executive flyers. How much fuel does a Boeing 747 hold versus other airlines? Boeing 747 can hold approximately 48,400 to 57,285 gallons of jet fuel, depending on the model of aircraft. So that's a little under the 63,000, but it's still almost 60,000 gallons of fuel. So we've got the Airbus aircraft. It's only the A380, which is one of the most expensive planes built. That has a greater fuel tank capacity of 84,535 gallons than the largest of the Boeing 747s, which is 57,285 gallons. Here's the big Goggle Brothers search engine, and it says, I wrote in, how big is a 60,000 gallon tank with an S instead of an A, because I can't spell. But you go down here and it shows you this big old tank, and it says, description, 60,000 gallon corrugated bolted steel tank with dimensions of 24.9 feet in diameter and 17.9 high and weighing 5,663 pounds. That's a 60,000 gallon galvanized water storage tank. 60,000. Here's another one. 60,000 gallon galvanized water storage tank. Here's one. 60,000 gallon galvanized steel tank. Pretty good size. But you can pretty much tell right here in this picture. That's a pretty big tank. So I thought, where in the world are they going to put a gas tank on an airplane? Because the whole fuselage is seats and underneath is baggage. I'm like, where are they going to find enough room on this big old... I know these planes are big, right? They're huge, I know, but there's no... Where's the gas tank? That's a big old... And then when I looked at the pictures, like, are you kidding me? They're in the wings. The gas tank is the entire wingspan. And if you notice, well, on that picture, you'll see that the gallons there is 45,000, not 63. But that's a different plane. And if you notice, there's only gas in the wingspan on the front of the plane, not in the tail wings, or whatever they call those, the tail wings. There's no gas tank back there. And so some of these bigger planes have gas in the back. If you see on that, if you notice there in that picture, there's a gas tank in the back. So they can get some of these planes up to 80-some thousand gallons of fuel. And I was thinking, my goodness, if you people that are flying in these airplanes didn't know this before, maybe you should get a seat that's not near, well, don't get one near the back if it's got a back tank. And don't get one near the middle, near the wings. Because if that thing crashes and blows up, man, that would be the worst place to be. Anyway, I don't know why I'm showing you this, but there was something going around where people were denying that it was possible to get 63,000 gallons on an airplane. I don't know if it's possible. To be honest with you, those wings don't look big enough, but there you go. Anyway, I'm just showing you this because of the fact that we cannot really trust anybody. I'm not saying I don't trust that there's not 63,000 gallons of fuel on an airplane, but what I am saying is it's enormous. It's an enormous amount of fuel. It seems very odd to me, and, you know, it's good to know where all the fuel's going and how much fuel they're using. It's very inefficient because what some people were saying is that it's much more efficient to fly because it takes more gas for two people to go cross country in a car than it would for all these, you know, maybe 50 people to get on an airplane, or 100, I don't know how many they hold, and go across 4,000 miles across the ocean. It's cheaper. Well, they're not telling you about the runway, all the workers, the pilots are getting millions of dollars, the tower people getting paid well, the heating, the air conditioning in the building where you go and get your luggage, all the luggage equipment, all the luggage handlers, the acres and acres of ground they have to purchase, bulldozers that bulldoze it all down and build these hangars, and all the mechanics and working on the airplane. I mean, there's got to be a lot more money involved with airplanes than with cars. Now, it's kind of like when they're saying, oh, it's cost too much money for coal plants, natural gas power plants. This is very expensive, bad for the environment. So we're going to go to solar. And they put up all these, or windmills or whatever. So at first glance, this seems like a good idea. Well, then they tell us that the great big windmills are killing the birds because they're flying into the propellers. They're not telling us that wind energy and solar energy is probably far less efficient and in the end costs more money. it takes oil and gas to have plants to build the materials. And again, there's a lot of people working. It's bad for the environment. There's all kinds of things they're not telling us. Like electric cars. Supposedly we're going to electric vehicles because gas is ruining the planet and global warming. But you still have to plug your car in, and that requires energy or electricity, which they're getting from coal-powered electric plants, which ends up it takes more coal-powered electricity to fill your electric car than it would be to just put gas in your car. So, yeah, the whole thing is probably just a big hoax. And I just thought I would point that out because everything in this world seems to be a huge hoax. Now, I told you about that because I want you to think about how something can seem so impossible and yet it actually is true. I thought it would be impossible that you could get 63,000 gallons of fuel on an airplane. And yet, much to my surprise, it's evidently true. There's evidently enough room in the wings to do that. Well, mysteries are out there. One of the things that's been going around with this flat earth belief or religion or whatever it's come to be, in spite of the fact that it's pretty obvious the earth is not flat, there are a couple of things that seem to be sticking in people's craws, and they're always talking about it. One of them is that water will always find its level. I've covered that before. I've actually shown numerous proofs that the earth is not flat, beyond any shadow of a doubt. However, I want to take a look at some of these questions because we've answered most of them, but I don't think I'd ever answered this question. And I thought about this, that I hadn't answered this question, so I want to do that today. And that is the idea that you seem to be able to see further away on the ocean. You can see a boat much further away than what they're saying you should be able to see. There are people that can look across Lake Erie and see the city or something. And I had seen some videos that people had done. And, I had seen some videos where I could tell they were not telling the truth. For instance, you can't just stand on the ocean and look out and say, okay, I can see further than I normally should be able to. You're still 6 foot off the ground. If you're 6 foot tall and your camera is at eye level, you're 5.5 feet above ground, and that's going to let you see quite a bit further. There are a lot of things like this. There's also the fact that the moon pulls the tides and the water could be high or low, and there's different things that could be going on here. Another thing that I had heard was that there may be something to do with refraction. And I know a lot of you are thinking, well, this is a likely story. Why doesn't NASA come out and explain this? Well, actually, people have tried to explain this, but somebody with whatever algorithms they got going on the Goggle Brothers search engine or YouTube or whatever, it seems like you don't see too many videos where people are running around trying to explain that the earth is not flat. It's like, I guess people at NASA either don't want to take these questions seriously, and all we've got is certain individuals that down in their basement, they come up with an idea, they read something. I mean, somebody's promoting this stuff. Like I said, this David Weiss, he is also one of these people. His lineage, his name is definitely Bavarian. And I definitely think that there are people that are putting up ruses and telling us half-truths and lies, and people are being very, very deceived. So I want to answer this particular question that people have. Why is it that at least for some people, when they're doing these experiments, they seem to be seeing much further than what they ought to be able to see? Well, here's the answer. And I actually did not know this, so I wanted to share with you what I found. This is the actual truth here. I've done some investigation, and I have seen proof for this, because to give you an example of why this is true, scientists have known this for a long time. When you're looking up into the sky and you're seeing a set of stars from the Earth, you're not actually seeing the stars where they actually are because of refraction. What do I mean? Well, have you ever looked inside of a crystal and tried to see some print on the other side. It may, because of refraction, show that the print is further off the page. It's moved its position when you go and you're trying to look through the glass. Take your glasses, if you have some bifocals or just some regular reading glasses, and you can put them over some paper, and you can see that you can look around the glasses and see the print in one position. But while looking through the glasses, the print may look as though it's off and not in the same position as it would be if you weren't looking through the glasses. So this is a real phenomenon. So because the Earth has all this atmosphere, when we're looking through the atmosphere, then light refracts and the position of whatever object you're looking at is going to change. That is just science, friends. And let me show you, I'm not going to go through the formula here. This is some sort of calculus jargon or whatever. But just to show you that these figures are out there and people are using them, and this is sort of the math that explains why objects in a camera zoomed in may look to be in a different place. You may be able to see them where you should not be able to see them because of the refraction of the lens of the atmosphere. Okay. So, take a look at that. That's what we're going to be looking at. But at that, when I zoom it in that close, it's a little blurry. So let me just show you what we're going to be looking at. Maybe you can see it better by zooming in here. But if you see the line, a horizontal line up top, and below the horizontal line is a little red line that seems to go downward, that's the line of sight. Let me show you again in full screen. So, and that even makes it more difficult for some people, because you're thinking, well, wait a minute, you could see forever in that direction. Yeah, out into outer space. But what we're doing is we're saying that we're trying to look, imagine that guy's eyes are down at the level of the Earth there, and he's looking straight out. Well, at some point, if something goes down, it goes down over the horizon. But if you're looking and it's being refracted towards the ground, so your line of sight is bending towards the ground, then you're going to be able to see much further than you would if it just went at a horizontal straight line. You're not seeing in a horizontal straight line when you're looking out into the distance on the ocean. The light is refracting towards the ground. So you're going to see farther than the formula that NASA gives you for the curvature of the Earth. The actual curvature of the Earth would make it impossible, if there were no lens, to see very far into the distance. But with this bending of light, you can see much further. I just wanted to share that with you guys. Now you can refute this and you can see if you can disprove these figures, but I don't think you can, because this is science. But I just wanted to share with you, we have to know the truth, guys. We can't spend and waste our time on conspiracies that certain Bavarians have started to confuse us and keep our eye off the ball and our eyes off the prize. So, today what I want to talk about is another one of these conspiracy theories. I used to believe that people like Norman Vincent Peale wrote these books to help mankind. But what I really think they did was just give us enough information to sort of confuse us, because they gave good information for somebody who really thinks about it, studies it out, and figures out what they're talking about. But if the people who are writing these books don't know what they're talking about, if they have never done it, then they're not going to be able to explain it clear enough for us to get it. They're going to give us some jargon, but it's not going to make a lot of sense because we try it and it doesn't work. There's going to be some slight nuances, and we're going to have to learn there are some other factors, such as patience, How do things manifest? Do they just appear out of nowhere? No. They're going to appear like when you're in a dream and you're walking along and all of a sudden there comes a dog, or here comes a friend, or here comes a building. Why do things appear in your dream? What is the reason that you're in a dream and all of a sudden you're standing there wonderfully happy, enjoying some conversation with someone, and you're about to go on a nice walk or go on a picnic or do some wonderful thing. You drive it along in your car, and all of a sudden out of nowhere there's a monster appears in your dream. Or, a boulder comes out of the sky and smashes your friend next to you. And these weird, people have weird dreams. I've seen and I've heard people share with me nightmares that occur in their sleep. But what I can prove, what I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, because I have literally done the experimentation and I have proven this, because I've been trying to understand this for years, how this all works. I'll give you an example. Years ago, not that many years ago, but I think I've already shared this with you guys once before. But I had, at the time, when this happened some years ago, I had been thinking about my mother, because, she passed away, I think in 1994. She had cancer. And it was a very, very tragic thing, and I love my mother dearly. And I remember feeling a lot of pain, a lot of confusion, and wondering, if there was something else we could have done and things like this. And I remember I had worried about it and thought about it in my mind. See, we have things in our subconscious that's rolling around that we haven't taken care of. We didn't forgive ourselves for, or we didn't let go of, or we felt uneasy or anxious about. And so these things stay in our minds and they'll surface. They're like fears, worries. And if we have these things in our mind, they will manifest, which is why people in the real world have so many problems manifesting in their lives, because there's some doubts, anxiety, worries, guilt, fear, something inside their mind that they haven't taken care of. So all amount of the positive thinking that you will do is not going to help you, because you don't understand your mind and how it works. You don't understand the various layers of thought. You have deep subconscious problems. You have fears that are deep-seated. You have traumas. And those things have to be dealt with. You can't just be positive, because you could be, like I've given the illustration many times, you could be in a trash compactor and you got 5 minutes to live and you're told, oh, well, just be calm and pray. And you can't do that, because you're going to be anxious about the fact that within 5 minutes you're going to be squeezed to death in a trash compactor, and you're going to be nervous, and it's going to be very difficult to be calm. So, you see, someone who is in tune with the Lord would probably have never found themselves in that situation. So prayer is something that it's more than just, flipping on a dime. If you were in a situation where you had those fears going in, and because of your fears and anxiousness and problems and traumas in life, somebody decided to throw you in a trash compactor, which is part of the dream. That's why you're dreaming this, because of things in your mind that you didn't take care of earlier. And now it's almost too late, because it's kind of hard to, go out into the forest in a lonely place, as the Lord said, and pray to the Lord in secret and say, oh, Lord, heal me of all these problems, and I forgive these things, and I trust in you, and do all of this, and start eating right, and getting sunshine, and good, clean, mineral water, and living properly, and all these wonderful things, and good habits, and all these kinds of things, in a matter of 5 minutes. So here's the thing. We're going to make our life. Now, don't worry, if you do end up in a trash compactor, and you don't have any time left, and it's too late, it's all right. We'll just start over again, and we'll do it next time. But I'm saying that in this world, if you're not in a trash compactor, and you've got 2 legs, and you're walking, and you're healthy, or even if you're sick, we can fix that. But up to a certain point, Maybe even at the last minute, miracles can happen. But that is if you are prepared to let everything go and capable of letting it all go and trusting in the Lord. So how does one come to a place where they trust in the Lord? Where they trust and they know and they believe. What does it mean to believe? Because whatsoever we believe, when we ask, Jesus said, believing in our heart with no doubts, we shall receive. But if he says, if you already believe that you already have received it, and you shall, how is it we're going to believe that we have already received something when we haven't already received it? Is this some sort of a game? See, this is the problems that people are having. Well, let me give you an example of how that could be. Remember, I just said to you earlier in this video that I was going along and looking at these properties, and I noticed this property for sale. As soon as I saw it, I immediately in my mind said, that's my property. I'm going to have that property. That is going to be where I'm going to purchase and live, at least for a period of time. I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to stay there forever and ever and ever. People change, and one day I may move from there and go somewhere else. We're all going to heaven someday. But I knew at the time that that property was going to be mine. How did I know that? Well, you see, all of us have these experiences where we look at something, we just know. But some of us are not familiar with these feelings, and so we just have these feelings, and the next day they kind of go away and we forget about them. Maybe the next day we have a feeling of angst and worry and trouble, and we forget all about the good times. So we're not taking note of these things. We're not understanding clearly what's happening. We're feigning that we're ignorant. Oh, I don't understand, Lord, it's not working out. And we want to cry and fall apart because we haven't learned endurance. We haven't learned strength. We haven't learned patience. This is part of our learning. We have to learn these things. And what are they? Well, what is patience? Well, you can't be patient unless you already know that if you'll just wait a little while, you'll get what you're asking for. So patience is really knowledge, isn't it? Knowing that things work the way they work, and assuring our hearts, knowing in our hearts that it works that way, means we have to have already had experience in this. Somebody with experience, if you go hunting with somebody and they've got experience and they've been down that trail before, they're going to be calm and they're going to be fine and they're going to know that everything's right on schedule because they've been that way before. But you haven't been that way before, and it's starting to look steep and treacherous, and you're starting to get worried. Well, because you haven't done this before. That's why you hire a guide or a tour guide or something. Somebody who's been that way before, who can say, well, I've had experience here and I know what to do. I've done this many times. I know how to traverse this area. So that's what we have to do. We have to get to a place where we know what we're doing. We have to get to a place where we can experience thoughts, subtle thoughts that most of the time when we're young and immature, we don't even recognize. We don't notice it. But there are things going on that's causing everything in our life. So we've talked about this before, like belief. What is it? Well, believing is a thought pattern. That's what a belief is. Because you see, everything has to do with your beliefs, your thoughts. But some thoughts are just transitory, little thoughts. Now, those kind of thoughts, they come and they go. And they go as fast as they come. We don't build our viewpoint, our beliefs from these transitory thoughts. You see, we could have a fear come up into our heart, like we're standing on a cliff and we look, oh my, But then we go, oh, wait a minute, here's something to hold on to. Now the fear goes away. That was just transitory. We have a better thought that comes along that says, oh, here's a tree to hold on to. Now I'm not scared. Oh, here's another little cubby hole I can scurry into, and I'm away from the edge. And now I'm not scared anymore. So now once we get into a safe position, we're not still thinking about the other thought that we had where we were scared, because we fixed it. We didn't stand around and waller in that fear, because if we had, we'd have probably fell off the cliff. We immediately said, okay, there's a fear, that's legit, that has, it's good that we have these fears, because we don't want, You see, everybody, even Jesus, everybody who's ever lived, if they're a real person, are going to say, look, that's scary, or I'm angry about this, or, those are normal things, anger and fear and anxiousness. But if we have wisdom and we know the truth, we know that they are only thoughts that keep us away from danger. We have that fear and there is that danger, and we go, oh, nice to know that I'm aware of that. And I've learned that I don't go in that direction. That's why that's scary in that direction, because I'm not going to go in that direction. And so we're used to it. We've experienced this. We're not going to fall apart. We're going to say, all right, I'm taking my attention off of that way, and I'm going to move, and I'm going to go a different way, and now we're fine. So it's the same thing with our thoughts. It's okay to have thoughts that aren't happy, okay? Because if we see something terrible, we're not going to be happy. If somebody is hurting a child in front of us, that's not going to make us feel good. It's going to make us angry. And those are good things to feel because they're appropriate. We should feel angry. Jesus was angry at these thieves and robbers that were turning his house, his father's house, into a den of thieves rather than a house of prayer. And it made him angry. So then he acted upon the anger appropriately. This is why the Bible says in Ephesians, I think the 4th chapter, it says, when you are angry or be angry. I don't think it's actually saying, I want you to be angry, but it's saying, it's okay to be angry, but do not sin. And don't let the sun go down on your wrath. Don't let it harbor in your heart. Get it fixed. So you're standing on the edge of a cliff and you see there's a drop off and you get scared. Well, if you just stand there, you're going to start getting dizzy and you might fall. Okay, that is a blessing that the Lord has given you, this fear. It's telling you what you ought to do. Get off the cliff. Move back. So it's a good thing. So it's all right if we're angry. We ought to be angry when we see the evil in this world. What the Bible is telling you to do is don't stay in that anger, but fix it. So what is the reason then that this problem exists? You say, well, Dave, there's so many problems in the world, some of them we just can't fix. Well, that's not true. We can fix all the problems with which we have to do. And when we have done everything we have been, we're supposed to do, then we're supposed to rest and be at peace. Because there's nothing else we can do. And then that's a logical process. We know that we did everything, and there is no more to fear. Why? Because we know how this works. We understand the Bible, that we're manifesting everything that's happening to us. So, if we're going to dwell on certain negative things, we're going to end up causing problems. Now, let me explain this further. I was telling you about my mother, and some years ago that I had a dream about her. Well, I want to tell you what dream I had. And I want to tell you this because I know how and why I had that dream. And I've had this experience many times. So I know that this is not just some aberration, but this is just an example. And it's a very clear example, and I could give you more. But I know that a few days before I had the dream, I think the day before actually, I was literally thinking about my mother, and out of my mouth and in my heart and coming up from my mouth, I was saying these words, something like this. I wish I knew then what I knew now, because I could have saved my mom. I could have helped her. There were things she could have done that I know now that I didn't know then, that I wish I could have told her. And I felt so sad or I don't know, something. I felt very, very sad that I wasn't able to help my mother. And somewhere in this process of thinking about this, it maybe came into my mind accidentally or something. It's not something I would normally do, but I remember kind of feeling guilty. Like, well, I should have done more. It was my fault, you see, or something like that. I could have helped her. Well, I don't know. It was just a little thought that I had, and I probably forgot about it. But that night I went to bed, and I had this dream where my mother is standing there, and I'm standing with her, next to her, and we're looking off of a cliff, a very high cliff, probably 1,000 feet in the air, this big, huge rock cliff, a mountain. And we're looking over the valley, and we can see down. And I remember we were talking, everything was fine. It was a good dream. It was a nice dream. I was talking to my mother. And all of a sudden, Mom started to walk towards the edge. And I said, Mom. And I remember, as I had the thought in my mind that might be dangerous, a rock slipped out from under her foot. And I saw the horrid details in this dream, of course. My mother slipping and falling off the cliff. And I remember I ran over and I watched her fall to the bottom. It was a horrid dream. And I woke up immediately, just literally frantic and frightened. And I just couldn't believe, why was I having this awful dream? And it immediately dawned on me that I had suggested this dream to myself. Now, this didn't actually happen. This was just a dream. But you see, the dream did happen. The scenario in the dream happened because of the thoughts that I had had the day before. I had allowed my mind to dwell on these things without saying, no, that is not your fault, David. You loved your mother. There was nothing you could have done. You were young. You didn't know. Everything happened according to the will of the Lord. And it was just the way you can't blame yourself. I didn't say that to myself. I should have. But I didn't. I harbored those thoughts and I let them stick. And I went to bed and had the dream. Now, thank goodness I was aware enough spiritually to know that I had made a mistake. And thank goodness it only got to my dream world. If I had continued to harbor those thoughts, who knows what could have happened? I might start projecting these same negative feelings on other things. And in my real waking life, something could have actually happened like that. A terrible thing. And I'd be out of nowhere. Something just bad happened. And I can also give you examples of literally having thoughts and beliefs in my head. And then that next day or week later, sometime very shortly after that, what I was thinking in my mind and worrying over and troubling over actually happened in my life. And I can tell you from experience, I give you my testimony. I give you my word. This is true. If you have thoughts in your head that are not resolved, you must resolve them now, or they will manifest in your life. So this then just tells us that the opposite is also true. If we harbor good thoughts and if we study and learn the truth and trust what Jesus says, that whatever we ask we shall receive, and that we should always say, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, and the Lord will answer any of our prayers and give us wisdom when we ask and everything, and we'll get answers every time. If we believe that, if we go around believing that, then we're going to make sure that we're doing what the Bible tells us in the New Testament, where it says to bring every thought into subjection to Christ. That's a very important thing, friends, if you're not doing it, practicing it on a regular basis. And see, and another thing is you won't be able to practice it very well if you don't really believe it. If you think, well, maybe it's a good idea. Dave says it might work. I'll try it. See, it's probably not going to work very good because you're just trying it. You got to learn, experience it. You've got to try it out. And when you see what the results are, it may take weeks or months to learn this. But I will show you today, because we're over an hour already, an hour and 4 minutes. So we're going to have to cut this short, but I'm going to give you a really great, amazing way to change your life right now. And this will happen if you will do what I'm about to tell you. If you will do it, you will change your life and potentially as you learn this and experience it, you will be able to have any life you choose, have all the blessings you could handle, and receive all the answers to your prayers. And here's what I suggest. Let's take this to another level. What you need to do is decide, first of all, what you really want, because this is one of the biggest problems that human beings have. We don't really know what we want. We say we want our soulmate, perhaps. We're praying for a soulmate, maybe. But on the other hand, we're constantly daydreaming about beautiful girls and wishing in our mind, oh, that's a beautiful redhead. Ooh, I wish I could know that girl. I wish she was my girlfriend. Okay. Oh, there's that brunette. Oh, isn't she nice? Oh, there's a beautiful blonde. Oh, look at this, Chinese lady. Oh, they're so pretty, those Chinese girls. And oh, look at these African American girls. They're so pretty. And we just start, we don't know what we really want. We haven't decided. So then we pray the Lord, could you give me my soulmate? And the Lord's thinking, well, let's see, you've been in your mind, these are your prayers, that your desires that you're sending up on the incense altar, and I'm hearing them all. And one minute you want a green car, and the next minute you want a red car, and the next minute so look, I don't know. The problem is that your fears are stronger than your faith. So you're scared out of your mind that you're going to end up in a bad relationship. And you're always scared and panicked and fumbling the ball because of this. You're scared out of your mind it's going to happen. You don't even want to talk to people for fear you might meet somebody that, you'll get in a bad relationship and break your heart again. So that's the only thing that's your prayer. Lord, please don't let that happen again. And your fears are going up before the Lord. And the fear is a strong force, just like faith. In opposite directions they work. You must get rid of the fear. Now, that's easier said than done, isn't it? Well, I will show you a shortcut. Okay? And those who have somewhat perfected this or have experienced this for a while don't need to do this anymore. But if you're a beginner, this will truly help you exceedingly, friends. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to sit down tonight, if you have time. If not, you can do it tomorrow. But very soon now, I want you to sit down with a piece of paper and a pencil, maybe a notebook, a journal, something. And I want you to sit for a while without writing and just think in your mind what you want your future to be. And I don't want you to think of a future that you would accept. Well, I guess I wouldn't mind doing this. Mom says I should be an electrician, so maybe I want to be an electrician. I don't know, well, maybe. I kind of like art, maybe I want to be an artist, but I'm not really sure if I'd like to get married, now and have children, or just have a career, or, you have all these ideas, you don't know what you want. So you're never going to get anything that you want because you don't know what you want. So what I want you to do to start with is you need to make it very clear to your subconscious mind, because it's going to manifest everything in the superconscious mind and your subconscious mind are going to come together and bear witness if you know how to do this. But you've got to straighten out your subconscious mind first. So therefore, put away all the guilt. Now that'll happen in time too as you begin to see these things working. You'll start having less fear. But what we're going to do is you're going to decide what you want. Now, if you really want your soulmate, then you're going to have to be ready and willing to stop being mean and angry and hurtful to other people, because, if you meet your soulmate, you're going to have to be nice to her, because she might not even want to be with you at this point. You see, if you haven't even got to the place where you learned how to love and receive. So that's what we're doing here. We're learning how to receive. We're learning that these emotions are real, and they prohibit us and inhibit us and actually accelerate all of our dreams as well. So once we've got that in mind, at first it's just going to be a little idea. Then we're going to experiment with it, and you're going to see it works. And then it's going to become so powerful that it will bring everything you want in your life. So sit down, decide what you want. And I mean, now me personally, I'm not writing down what my career is going to be, because I don't want to have anything to do with this world, and I don't want a career. In my mind, what I've decided, because I already know what I want, is peace. I want love. I want happiness. I don't give a flying leap, right, about being a great, movie star or having fame or money. I don't care about that, and that's not what I want. Now, maybe that's what you want. If it is, you can bring it into manifestation. But just remember, if what you're wanting is lots of money and power and fame, it's probably based on a lot of fear as well, because you're scared that there's not going to be enough for you and everybody else. And you see, you have to examine why you want these things. You may think, I want this, but what is your motive? Once you've cleared that up, you've figured out what your motive is, you may find that you need to, adjust some of the things that you say you want. Because perhaps some of the things you want are only fleshly desires. And this is why the apostle, or the brother of the Lord James, said that you pray but you receive not, because you ask to receive it upon your lust, to consume it upon your lust. So it is your lust and your fear that's asking, so it can consume it and spit it out. And that's all you're interested in, is having fun and pleasure and power and money. And you'll get that, but it'll be short-lived, and then you'll end up with the consequences of that. Suffering, trauma, because you're asking for things that are painful. You're asking for things that don't bring eternal life and happiness. So once you learn that you better start asking for good things, and you stop asking for all these things that are temporary and illusionary, and they don't bring true happiness. You get rid of those things and start asking for things you really want. Because if you get, to asking for brand new cars and all kinds of money, you have to be prepared. Well, what am I going to spend all this money on? What is my heart? Do I want to help people? Are you going to get this money and then just help people and give it to the poor? Is that what you're asking for? Because then that might be fine. But if what you're doing is saying, I want all this money so I can lord it over others and hurt people, well, then your karma is only going to bring you down into a place where you're going to suffer. So remember, we've got to make sure that we're asking for the right things. Once we figure out what we really want, eternal life and happiness, not pleasure at any expense. No, but happiness, contentment. We want a companion, not a 2 nights with a floozy for $100, right? We want a real person who isn't going to just look at us and spend some time with us and then give us some drama and some trauma and break our heart. But we really want love, which means give and take, and you're going to be willing to love that person as much as they're going to be loving you. And if you want that, then you'll pursue that and not this other thing. So now, once you get all these things down, that you understand that this is really what you want for certain, and it's not going to hurt anyone else, it's only for good, it's according to the will of the Lord, and you figure that out, then I want you to design your world the way you would like to have it. What kind of place you'd like to live. What kind of a woman you'd like to marry, or whether you'd like to have kids, or how many kids, or whatever it is that you're seeking. Now, hopefully, your hopes are a companion to share this world with while you preach the gospel and feed the homeless and all this kind of thing. Make your goals the best and most loving and good goals you can. And when you decide what you want in life, then I want you to take that journal or that paper and the pen and write it down in every detail. Write down what color of car you want, what kind of car, where you want to live and everything, okay? And the reason why we do that is because, as we said, what we believe, the picture in our mind of what we're wanting, is going to manifest. But if we don't know that, then we're constantly dwelling on the fears and the problems, then we're going to end up manifesting those things instead. So we're going to draw a picture of what we want. We're going to get it in our head that this works. We're going to tell ourselves logically it works. We're going to make the picture, and we're going to quietly stop worrying. We're going to stop thinking about those other things. We're going to start envisioning this new picture, because now we know what we want. That's going to help us tremendously, just knowing, just coming to the place where we realize this is what I really want. Okay? And then the fact that we wrote it down, now there's something magical that happens when you write it down. Now you put that paper away in a drawer somewhere, or under your pillow or whatever. Maybe every day when you wake up in the morning, you'll open it up and look at it. It'll remind you of the things that you're looking for, your goals. And it's like a constant prayer. And so this is why the Bible says pray continually. Be at it urgently. Always pray, the Lord says. Always pray. And so this will be your prayer. Your entire goals and your future will be written down the way you intend for it to happen. And you will envision it, and you will see it before your eyes. Every time you look at your journal, every time you read it, the picture will form again. And the longer and the more you do this, if you were to do this, say, for just maybe a month or two, whatever it is that you've written down would probably begin to manifest within that short period of time. So, anyway, we're way over an hour. I'm not going to be able to go further into this, but I want to do a video and explain further this process soon, friends, because it's very important that we understand these things. I'm going to go ahead and go. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great one. May the Lord bless you.